Good evening, detectives. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Moonstone Murders live. Well, live-ish. For those who are new to the investigation, I am Inspector Rutherford, and I'll be leading tonight's case for you, which is, of course, the Curse of the Pharaohs. But I'm not alone this evening. Every week I am joined by a guest detective, and this week we've got something special all the way from across the pond in America. We have with us D.I. Feig. How are you doing this evening, D.I. Feig? Just to check, I pronounced that name correctly. Fantastic. Just to check, I'm going to make many poor pronunciations as it's 1925 in Cairo this evening, but as long as I've got your name right, that's the most important thing. As well, for anyone who is new to the stream this evening, the way that it works quite nicely is that alongside myself and D.I. Feig will meet our lineup of suspicious suspects. At home, you can type your questions to them in the comments section, and it's up to you and D.I. Feig to see if you can catch the killer of the Curse of the Pharaohs. Before we go anywhere, and before we dive into it, I should probably let you know the story. So, my apologies, you can't hear D.I. Feig. I'm very sorry about that one. Hopefully you can hear them now. Because D.I. Feig, although it's 1925, our technology is modern day, and our inspector is an idiot who forgot to hit the unmute. Sorry, D.I. Feig, do you want to quickly say hello?
Hello.
There we are. Hopefully that's solved the issue at home. I'm very sorry about that, detectives watching at home. So, as said, this case is the Curse of the Pharaohs. The year is 1925, and following the previous discovery by Howard Carter's excavation of Tutankhamun, museums and philanthropists have been scrambling to assemble explorative teams of their own in the hopes of finding a wonder in the Valley of the Kings. For the last 18 months, one major expedition has been led by Sir Wilfrid Marker. After a long and expensive process of failed excavations, this week a major discovery was made by Sir Marker. The tomb of the rather unknown pharaoh La Takdul has appeared. After finally breaking into the entrance of the tomb yesterday morning, Marker believed he had hit the jackpot. Instead, it seems the curse of the pharaohs has struck again, as Sir Marker was discovered dead this morning. But I'm not one to believe in curses, and I believe that foul play is actually here at hand. So I've lined up my suspicious suspects, and hopefully tonight we'll catch the killer by one of them escapes their fate with the poison asp. So there you are, that's your story this evening. But before we go any further, I think it's time we heard a little bit more about our guest detective. So D.I. Feig, if you'd be so kind, now I've remembered to unmute you, if you could just introduce yourselves to the detectives at home and a little bit more about yourselves.
I am a 17-year-old high school student in Alabama, and my previous detective skills, in elementary school we had a 2-week unit on forensics, so I think I'm fully prepared.
Well, you've got specialist training on this. That beats most of our previous guest detectives. So your previous sleuthing skills are, again, you've had some forensic training. Although, inconveniently, it's 1925 in Cairo, so there's no DNA or fingerprints. Such a shame.
Sure.
So, as well, this evening, as you saw, anyone who tuned in for last week's episode, you can see in our bottom right-hand corner there is the tip jar. Now, 80% of that is split evenly between all of the performers involved. However, for Series 2, 20% of the donations goes towards the Charity of the Week, which is selected by our guest detective, and this week it is Doctors Without Borders. Why, D.I. Feig, have you selected this charity?
Because they're doing very important medical outreach work that I feel is very important, or I guess will be very important in like 100 years, right? Is what we're going with?
100 years, no. 95 years. It'll be very relevant in 95
Yeah.
years. But at the moment, we're doing fine. But hopefully, we can help them out this evening for 95 years' time. So after that, we've met our guest detective. Now, before we tell you any facts of the case, I believe it's time we met our suspects. Now, our deceased, as you can see on the top left, is Sir Wilfrid Marker. And suspects, if you'd be so kind to introduce yourselves and the relationship to the deceased.
Good evening, and I hope this isn't going to take too long. I'm Lord Lucas Haines, and I'm going to be late for an appointment with the High Commissioner if we don't get a move on. And I am the man who's funding this expedition and has been for the last 18 months.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amelia Carnarvon, and I was the deceased's assistant on this expedition.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mildred Berstead. I am the curator at the museum in Cairo. My deceased husband was very good friends with Wilfred Marker, and obviously I've known him for many years through my husband and the work that we've done at the Cairo Museum.
The name is Drake, Harrison Drake, eminent explorer, lover of beautiful things, and all-round hero. I'm a rival, if you can call it that, of sorts, of Wilfred.
Well, there we are. That's your suspicious suspect lineup for this evening, and I think it's time I filled you in on the preliminary facts of the case. Just to check, D.I. Feig, do you have a pen and paper at the ready?
I do, yes.
Fantastic. Detectives at home, do you have a pen and paper at the ready? I'm going to pretend you rhetorically answered to that. I'm just hoping some people just smile, nod, and say yes to the TV. So, away we go. Now, Sir Wilfred Marker was discovered dead this morning in his private tent. Now, there were initial fears by some people that the curse of the Pharaohs had struck again, but from initial inspection, I believe that it was some form of poison that killed Sir Wilfred Marker. When I went on close inspection, his clothes had a strange smell of bitter almonds. Also, as well, around his chin, neck, and mouth, there were some signs of irritation and tissue damage with ulceration. Now, yesterday at 7 p.m, I apologise, I said in the story it was the morning, but it was actually the tomb discovery was at 7 p.m. yesterday. And alongside tonight's suspects, Sir Wilfred Marker entered what they believe to be the tomb of the lost pharaoh Latak Dul. Since nobody else is showing any other signs of the curse of the Pharaoh's symptoms, I think one of the other entrants to the cavern is behind this. Now, I've just seen a few people saying that I'm very quiet. Can you hear me better now? How about now? Hopefully that may have solved the issue. Apologies about that, detective. So, I do apologise. Detectives at home seem to be having an issue with the audio at the moment. Hopefully people might be able to hear me better now. If not, I'm very sorry, detectives, about this. I will be we'll sort this out in a few moments. There we are. Can anyone hear me? Hopefully they can hear me better now. We'll swiftly move on. So as said, he entered there at 7 p.m. yesterday with our other suspects this evening. And as then none of them are showing the symptoms of the curse of the Pharaohs. One of them statistically would be behind it. As well, last night, a few hours after the initial excavation, Sir Wilfred appeared in the camp to be drunk and unable to walk straight. So with the assistance of Lord Haines and Amelia Carnarvon, he was taken to his tent to sleep. It's too loud now. There we are. Apparently no one can hear me, and now I'm deafening them. It's going well. Again, 1925. This is wizardry, this technology. No one knows quite what to do with it. Apologies to our new detectives. Normally this runs much smoother. So there we are. Those are the preliminary facts of the case. Hopefully you managed to successfully hear them, or you successfully weren't deafened by them. But now it's over to D.I. Feig to pick the order. So which of our suspects would you like me to question first?
Let's begin with Lord Lucas Haines.
You would like to begin with Lord Lucas. No trouble at all. So, Lord Lucas, as said, you have been financing the expedition by Sir Marker for the last 18 months. I was wondering how well you got on with Sir Wilfred. I mean, you've funded quite a few explorers in your time. How does he compare?
Well, what shall I say? I could tolerate the fellow, is probably the best way of putting it. To be honest, we did rather rub each other up the wrong way, particularly as I was beginning to lose patience with progress.
Yes.
So, I mean, really, I got involved in this after my friend George Carnarvon managed to pull off the Tutankhamun thing with Howard Carter. And so I decided to set up my own expedition to try and achieve the same sort of fame and fortune. Well, after 18 months, we've achieved a hole in the back entrance to, or the back passage to the Cairo Museum. We managed to run up a huge postal bill, mainly because my friend Sir Wilfrid insisted on photographing artifacts brought to him by Deirdre and shipping them off back to Blighty. So yeah, all of that just drained my money over the last 18 months.
Hang on, so he was photographing items brought to him from the... When you say Deirdre, I'm presuming you mean Mildred.
Sorry,
Mildred, yes.
Mildred, yes. My sister's called Deirdre.
Yes.
Yes, Sir Wilfrid was a very keen photographer. You see, I can vouch for that. He has his own photography tent at all of his excavations, and he photographs all the different artifacts and send things back. But he's oddly protective of those practices, you see. I'm, for instance, not even allowed into the photography tent without being accompanied either by Sir Wilfrid or Mildred, which I find incredibly inconvenient, because of course that's also where he keeps all of the excavation equipment and the protective equipment, things that obviously I need access to. So it's just obscenely protective about these photographs. And then of course, as Lucas is saying, he sends them back home in these enormous crates. I mean, the amount of packaging that must be there to protect these photographs, I don't know.
Sorry, Amelia, the amount of the size of the crates is purely to ensure that the photographs don't rub together and therefore lose any quality. These photographs are being sent to other experts in order to find out information about the artifacts. So we have to make sure that they don't rub together and remove any of the, the photographic imprint that's on the paper. I mean, and Lord Haines, I find it fascinating that you were neglecting to bring up with the inspector the fact that you and Sir Wilfrid had a rather heated discussion or argument a few days ago now. Were you planning to tell him about that?
Really? Is this true, Lord Haines?
Well, I do think that Mildred, the whole thing, has got this rather wrong way around. Yes, we did have quite a heated exchange, but it was a business discussion that got rather out of hand.
A heated exchange is not quite how I would express it. I mean, that's a huge understatement for an argument that was so loud. I'm sure half of Cairo heard it.
Yes.
At least, exactly, yes. And I distinctly remember hearing you, Lord Lucas, threatening to kill Sir Wilfrid with your bare hands if there wasn't a discovery made soon.
Right, well, as you all know, I do have a fairly short temper, and I am given to strong words on occasion. So you all know me well enough. You've all known me for 18 months now. There's no way that I'm actually going to kill the man. Besides, anyway, for whatever reason, my little pep talk, shall we call it, actually had a very good effect, because don't forget that it was only a couple of days later that he discovered the tomb of Lad Tadgul. So, yes, and after I spoke to him, he said he would go off and speak to Mildred and his other contacts in the city to try and identify the best area to start the dig from again. So, anyway, it seemed to work. So, object achieved, I'd say.
Well, it sounds to me like, if I may interject, Inspector, that you're...
Go ahead, everyone else. Yes.
It sounds to me like your patience, Lucas, was wearing as thin as your bank balance. Everybody knows that Lord Haines is going through a bit of a tough period of fiscal turbulence, if that's not unfair to say, Lucas. I hope I don't speak out of turn, obviously, but I think there could be a good motive for murder here. Maybe you would like to kill poor Wilfrid to take all the goodies from the tomb for yourself, Lucas.
Well, I think that's pretty outrageous coming from you, young man.
I'm just using my imagination.
Yes, well, if you have a very good imagination, if I may say. Well,
that's what they say.
Okay, there have been some funding issues. Having to sustain a big expedition like this, or month on month. I mean, but I'm not greedy like that. I mean, we've now achieved our aim, and hopefully we will all do well from it. But you know that Wilfred had a lot of private business going on, and that, well, we did celebrate yesterday the discovery of the new tomb, and, well, that should help us. I mean, the tomb was wonderful. I've never seen an Egyptian tomb like it, so especially not one with metal racking.
So, Lord Haines, when did you just to confirm, when did you last see Sir Wilfred alive?
Oh, yesterday evening. Well, after a final inspection of the tomb around about 7 o'clock, then we all went off back to camp, and well, I gave Wilfred a hip flask of this very fine Scotch because he was a bit out of sorts, and I thought it might steady him up a bit. So so he went off, and well, he got very drunk very quickly because I think he probably downed the hip flask in one, and then young Amelia here helped me carry him off and get him back to his tent, and that was the last I saw of it.
Well, okay. Well, I think that's everything from my end. I'm gonna pass over to DI5 shortly. I can see quite a few of you are doing it already, but any questions you have, put them in the comments section now. I forgot to mention as well, for any new detectives this evening, questions are for the comment section. Feel free to put as many you in. As you can see, quite a few of our returning detectives have used the comment section mainly for puns. But anything in terms of sort of conclusions or anagrams or anything like that, please avoid putting them in the comment section because we don't want to spoil the fun for any other detectives playing at home. But keep typing in questions. For now, let's go over to DI5. Any questions for Lord Lucas Haines?
So you said that the expedition had been losing you money over the past 18 months. Is that correct?
That's correct. We spent a lot, but not achieved a lot.
Okay, and how much longer could you have afforded to continue funding this?
I don't really think I need to answer that rather impertinent question. You don't normally ask a gentleman about his finances.
Really, I do.
Well, you may, young man, but let's say that my family estate is substantial.
All right, and when you brought Sir Marker to his tent last night, what condition did you leave him in?
Well, he was pretty much stupefied as far as I could tell. He was leaning against, well, wasn't he, Amelia? You and I were having to steady him between the two of us, and we let him flop on his camp bed, and, well, I left him to it and went back to finish the Scotch.
Okay. And Inspector Rutherford, you said that there was a scent on his on Marker's clothing. Is that correct?
Yes. From close inspection, I can't identify which part of the clothing it was, but it sort of had a strange, faint smell of bitter almonds to him.
And did you notice any smell, Mr. Haines, when you brought him to the tent?
Sorry, Mr. Haines, Lord Haines.
Lord Haines.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, DI5. Posh people get funny if you don't address them properly.
Of course.
Not particularly. I think probably because I'd had a few scotches myself at the time anyway. So, no, I didn't. What about Amelia may have done? I don't know.
Okay. No, I don't remember noticing any smell at all. I was, to be honest, it's not a pleasure to be dragging a man to his bed after he's got drunk when he's supposed to be your superior in the work field.
All right. I think that's all from me for now, if you'd like to head to the other detectives.
Yes, no trouble at all. Let's turn over to the detectives at home. So let's go. Let's start with the pen. A question from the. Well, we'll start it with a pun. Jenny Wren. I sphinx the gentlemen don't like each other too much. There you are, Jenny Wren. I've read out your one pun. Enjoy it. We'll move on. The pandemics. Question. What happened to the artifacts after the photos of them were analysed by experts? But remember, we're only asking questions to Lord Haines. I'm presuming you don't know what happened, as it's more for Mildred.
No, as far as I'm concerned, the damn things were sent off at great expense. That's the last I know of it.
There we are. Anna Marie Grossman Knock asked who found the body at what time. That's a question from me. The answer is it was a random member of the crew was alerted after Sir Wilfrid Marker's canary started panicking at around 6 a.m. this morning. Let's not dig into that one too much. Katie Holmes, it was a mummified... Right, Mr. Buttons is not in this one, okay? Sorry for new detectives. Watch Mr. Wobbly. Question from Dominic Leelord Harry. How were they celebrating and what were they drinking for clarification? So Dominic wants to know, how were you celebrating, Lord Haines?
Well, as I said, my favourite tipple is malt whiskey. So I was enjoying a couple of them, and I gave Sir Wilfrid a flask of it to help cheer him up a bit, as I said.
And was it yourself that put the whiskey into the flask?
Yes, it was my hip flask.
And did you drink the same whiskey? The whiskey that you consumed, was it from the same bottle that went into the hip flask?
Well, I only drink the McLachlan, and this is it. So, easily identified.
Oh, there we are. Okay, thank you for clarifying that up. That's a question about the photographs. Hannah Booth, have the artifacts been identified as genuine, or could they have been faked? I presume they don't know. You only had sort of a brief scan last night, from what I was informed. No one's probably verified the artifacts yet, have they, Lord Haines?
Oh, no. Last night it was a case of a glance through a door and a decision to come back the following day and do a proper examination of the tomb.
There we are. And I'm afraid that hasn't happened today because the lead explorer is dead. Okay, question, Katie Holmes, or there's no badges either. Another question from Dominic Leelord Harry. You could take my job. How much did it cost to hire Sir Wilfrid Marker?
Well, let's say a very substantial figure, but he was an explorer of renown and someone I thought could do the job properly. I was obviously wrong.
Cheaper, half the price.
Thank you for that.
Okay, sorry, there's just questions that are repeating themselves. Anna Marie Grosden Knock, Lord Haines, any background of knowledge of poison?
No, none at all.
Haven't killed anyone before?
No, not to my knowledge.
It's a shame, the amount of murders I catch when I say that. Jarlath Keane was asking about the same Scott to the hip flask again, similar thing. And when did you drink... Kevin Dickinson, when did you drink the whiskey? Were you drinking the whiskey at the same time?
Well, yes. I mean, I always keep a decanter of it handy in my own accommodation, and I carry the hip flask for emergencies. So, I just handed him the flask and then continued drinking from my own stock.
Okay. We'll take a few more, then we'll move on to the next suspect. Ian Santry, what is Lord Haines' interest if treasure is found? So what would you gain out of the findings?
Oh, the fame and a share of any profits from the exhibitions that would follow.
So you'd get a higher rate if they were sent to a museum, that sort of thing, do you mean?
Well, yes. I mean, one would expect to be suitably remunerated for the effort and investment that one's put into the task. I mean, again, I quote George Carnarvon. He didn't do at all badly out of Tutankhamun, did he?
Well, I think he's died. Well, he died, if I remember rightly. So I think he.
Yes, but he did all right before he died.
He did all right. Well, it's a little bit bittersweet, that statement, really. He did great, and then he died of a curse. So we'll just take a few more. There's a couple of people asking if you ate that evening. I'm presuming you all did, alongside the whiskey.
Just some bread and olives, usual sort of desert fare before we retired back to the hotel for a proper dinner.
There we are. Who knew they had antipasti in the middle of Cairo? As well, just for clarification, Lord Haines, I don't know where the hip flask is. Do you know? Do you have it back, or has it disappeared?
As far as I know, it's still in the tent.
Well,
because I left him there. Next thing I know, he's dead, and the place is cordoned off and surrounded by you and various other police.
It must have disappeared somewhere. It might still be in the tent, but I didn't personally see a hip flask. It might have fallen under a camp bed or something. But a couple of people are asking if the hip flask smelled of almonds. I'm afraid I don't know because I didn't see one. But again, quick scan. I was more focused on the dead body, I'm afraid.
Well, of course, I can't show you the hip flask because he's got it.
There we are. So it might be there, but at the moment, as I'm questioning the suspects, it probably is. Most likely, it's probably fallen under a camp bed or some clothing, but I haven't seen it, I'm afraid. So I can't verify if it smelled of bitter almonds. I think it's time to move on to our next suspect, I believe. So, DI5, who would you like to question next? You've got Amelia, Mildred, or Harrison?
Before we move on, could I ask Haines one more question?
I'll allow you one more.
I just wanted to ask, what is the future of the expedition now that your lead explorer has died?
Well, let's put it this way. I have a vacancy for a lead explorer.
DI5, if you're looking for a new job. So, which suspect would you like us to question next?
Let's go to Mrs. Carnarvon.
So we're moving. Is it Mrs. or Miss Amelia?
It's Miss, and it's Carnarvon.
Carnarvon. Okay.
Give some warranty for accent there, Miss Carnarvon. Miss Carnarvon, then, how did you come to work on the expedition? I believe you're the assistant of Sir Wilfrid Marker. Your surname, however, it seems awful familiar.
Yes, well, of course, you have been talking about my uncle, George Carnarvon.
That would work.
Yes, so George Carnarvon, of course, Lord Carnarvon, as of course you should refer to him, did discover the tomb of Tutankhamun with Howard Carter. Now, of course, everyone thinks that Howard Carter was the sole explorer, and of course that my uncle was simply a financial backer, but it's just not true. Though, of course, he was a financial backer as well. So yes, this is how, of course, Sir Lord Lucas knows my family. And when I wrote some articles about my uncle's findings after he died of the infection, Lord Lucas recognized my writing, even though I only use my initials, because, of course, being a woman, no one will take any notice if I write with my full name. So he recognized that it must have been me writing these articles, and he asked me to work with Sir Wilfrid on this new expedition.
Sorry, Amelia, I just feel I should interrupt and clarify for everybody that, you know, your uncle did not die of an infection. He died of the curse of the Pharaohs. I mean, it's very clear. It was the same with my husband, you know, and that's why I told everyone yesterday that they should never have gone into that tomb, because, you know, this is what happened to Sir Wilfrid as well. It's the curse of the Pharaohs all over again.
Yes, I do understand your concern, Mildred, but there's a simple explanation for the curse of the Pharaohs, as everyone calls it, which is, of course, unknown pathogens entering the body, diseases that are yet unaccounted for, that we've not met before, and that's what this curse of the Pharaohs is. And my uncle died of a mosquito bite that became infected. It's absolutely, totally unrelated to any curse of the Pharaohs. And I did try to explain this to you yesterday, Mildred, when you very kindly gave me that scarf to wrap around my face to stop me inhaling the dust, and I do appreciate that very much. Of course, I don't really appreciate how quickly Sir Wilfrid then snatched that scarf from me and used it himself, so I had to use my shirt over my nose, but I do appreciate that you gave it to me.
So going back, you touched on Sir Wilfrid. What was it like actually working for him, Amelia? What was he like to be an assistant for?
Well, if I'm honest, quite trying. I mean, I don't want to appear egotistical, but the longer I worked with him, the more apparent it became that his knowledge was just seriously lacking and was nowhere near as good as my own. He would mistranslate things all of the time, which I had to correct for him. I was constantly having to highlight better places, better sites for excavation than he was pointing out. And even yesterday, when we found this potentially incredible site, I did point out to him that it seemed a bit odd that, for instance, there's no historical documentation for La Takdul as a pharaoh. And of course, translated, it actually means no entry, which is a very strange name for a pharaoh. I'm sure you'll agree.
Well, they all had odd names, didn't they? So what did you think of this next discovery then?
It's really too soon to say. I mean, we've discovered the entrance, and then Sir Wilfrid said that he was closing it off for the evening and didn't want anyone going in till tomorrow, that we should all celebrate and give the time that it would properly need the next day to take things out. I got a glimpse through the door of some artifacts that look remarkably similar to other artifacts found in pharaohs' tombs that have already been excavated, and with proper certification, they could be incredibly valuable.
Amelia, now Sir Wilfrid has passed on, shall we say, don't worry. We will continue with the expedition, and you will be part of the team examining those artifacts.
And I really have to say, you need to be incredibly careful. You don't have the experience, the knowledge to deal with this. We're dealing with the curse of the pharaohs here. I mean, I am more than happy as the curator of the museum in Cairo to offer up, shall we say, some of my my more disposable assistants to come and remove the items from the tomb and to have them looked at in the safety of the museum. I mean, I really think you need to be very, very careful. You really don't understand what you're dealing with.
Right. Just one last question from me, Amelia. When did you last see Sir Wilfrid alive? Just for clarification.
Oh, of course, at the same time as everybody else, we were all celebrating, and then he suddenly seemed so drunk he couldn't walk in a straight line. So myself and Lord Lucas Haines, as he has already said, assisted him to his tent and left him there to sleep it off.
Well, thank you very much for that, Miss Carnarvon. Seems an awful lot of disdain for your employer there. But I'm going to pass over to D.I. Feig. Any questions for Amelia Carnarvon?
Yes. So to begin with, when you, sorry,
It's all right.
you say that he regularly mistranslated things. How did this affect the expedition? And how damaging was this for the expedition?
Well, I would say that that's one of the reasons the expedition was so stagnant for such a long time, is he wouldn't listen to me when he had an idea. He would say, well, this clearly means so-and-so, and it would take us in a completely different direction to where we should be heading with the expedition. And I would say, look, that's not what it means, and this is what it means. And then eventually he might come around to realize that actually I did know what I was talking about. And then we would look at the new site or look at a different artifact in a way that might point us in a different direction.
How did you come to find this tomb? What evidence supports it?
This was, I would say, just pure luck, because as I say, he didn't really seem to know what he was doing. It was pot luck. His translations made no sense, and half the time the places that he was looking made no sense. But for this one, he just got lucky, I think. He said, today we are going to dig here, and of course he was in charge, so although there was no evidence to dig there, we did, and we came across this entrance.
All right. And so you said that the artifacts you saw within the tomb did look real.
I wouldn't necessarily say, I don't know if they're real. I have no reason to suspect. that they're not.
Just to clarify, no one has been in the tomb since, for DI5, no one's been in the tomb since the suspects and Sir Marker went in there last night, so nothing's been officially verified yet.
Okay.
No, and I did.
But you said you said they looked remarkably like previously discovered artifacts.
Exactly, yes. Yes, from the glimpse I got through the doorway, I wasn't allowed any closer.
Right. Okay. And as for the photography tent, which you said you were not allowed to enter, that was simply one of Marker's eccentricities that you could not enter? Was there any seeming reason for this?
As far as I can tell, just exactly as you were saying, he's an eccentric man. And to be honest, he didn't like that Lord Lucas had asked me to be his assistant. He didn't want a woman as his assistant. And I think it was just one of his power plays that I would not be allowed into his precious photography tent. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else to it, but it was incredibly frustrating.
Okay. And when you left Marker in his tent, you and Lord Haines left the tent at the same time, I presume?
Yes, we did.
Okay. That is all I have for now.
Okay, no problem. Let's pass it over to the detectives at home. Anne-Marie grows a knock. As a few people have asked us, actually, asking Amelia, did you drink alongside, it says alongside the men, but did you drink alongside the rest of the crew that night?
I don't drink very often. I did drink, but I had some wine.
You had some wine. Okay, Rachel Keane, are Harrison and Amelia in a relationship? Are you two in a relationship together?
Lord knows.
Oh, the Lord knows. Lord Haines, do you know if they're in a relationship together?
Not that I'm aware of.
There we are. David Mears, infection, 'twas a curse, me lord. There we are. Let's move on. Jenny Rare, Miss Amelia seems very knowledgeable. She's keeping something under wraps. The scarf. Colin Smith asked if the scarf smelt. Well, he still had some sort of a loose, thin scarf. And as I said, his clothing as a general area did smell. But we said his clothing had a faint smell of bitter almonds. But for all I know, it could have been something could have been spilt on him. It could have been a measure of things. For all we know, he may have sort of lightly thrown up onto his clothes as well. Jenny Wren, did anyone other than Mildred verify the artifacts? You, just to confirm, Amelia, you didn't have it. You saw the artifacts from a distance, but no one has verified them yet. And no one went into the entrance, Anna-Marie asks again, but as Kevin Dickinson, do the tombs usually have more than one entrance? Harrison, you're the expert on this, actually. Do tombs tend to have more than one entrance?
One way in, one way out. Yeah, that's the business I'm in.
I was asking you about the tombs, not your private life.
Oh, okay. The tombs, sorry. Yeah, it really very much depends. I'll never forget, it was Howard Carter himself who almost missed King Tut's tomb, and he said to me, there's nothing to see there, and I said, go back and have a peek. He went back in and he saw all I needed to see, and that was history, Inspector.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does, very arrogantly, but it answers it. Poppy McGeary asks, Amelia, as we've covered Harrison, were you in a relationship with Sir Marker?
No. Lord, no. My goodness, no.
There we are. We'll just do a quick... I'll tell you what, detectives at home, and DI5, we're going to save a little bit of time on this. If you were in a relationship with the deceased or any of you, just put your hand up. No?
I'd have to check my diary.
I have to check the diary. There we are. As you can see, none of the suspects, myself or DI5, could put their hands up. I'm afraid there are no relationships going on here that anyone is willing to confess. Alvar Samso, apologies, I can't figure it. It's a little bit blurry on that one. I can't see if that's a C or an O on the end. Was Wilfred allergic to anything? To anyone's knowledge, did anyone know if Sir Wilfred was allergic to anything?
He certainly brought it up. Oh, Harrison, will you give it a rest? No, not to the knowledge of the crew that he was working with, no.
There we are. A question from one of our moderators is asking if there's a map to the tomb. I'm presuming no, because it was only found yesterday.
No, there's a map of the site area that we're excavating, of course. There are several sites that we are excavating within an area. So there's a little marker on there saying that this is where we're excavating next, but no.
Apologies, suspects. 4 of our detectives at home have put their hands up, so apparently Sir Marker worked his way around quite a bit there. I'm glad. One in every port, as they say. A few people mentioned this earlier. Apologies, about 3 people asked at some point. Amelia, a quick question. Would you, now that there's a space for the head explorer spot, will you look to apply for it?
Well, of course. I've essentially been, helping out through this entire project, and I would hope that that is recognised. Of course, in this day and age, it probably won't be, but I will certainly put my name forward.
Okay. We're going to do 2 last questions before we move on to the next one. Just a side one for Harrison. According to Lunar Nighthead, I know you belong on the news. Then David Mears wants to know if there was any clear puncture wounds for mosquito bites. I'm afraid I couldn't see any puncture wounds on that one. A couple of people are asking about why he snatched the scarf off you. Why did he grab the scarf?
Well, because I assume it's very dusty excavation work, and of course, usually I have something with me, or you just pull your shirt up over your face to cover your nose and your mouth. Yeah. So as we got closer to the entrance of the tomb, the more dust was flying around, which is why, of course, Mildred offered me the scarf, and then he stole it off me because he didn't have one, and he thought that being further forwards, presumably, or being the most senior member, he should have it.
I'm presuming then he just, as the head explorer, and he just presumed that he was more important than you when it came to safety.
I'm sure.
It must have been rather frustrating, that one. I'm being constantly undermined by your boss. But let's move on to our next aspect for now. So we have 2 left. We either have Mildred Berstead, or we have Harrison Drake. DI5, who would you like to question next?
Mildred.
We're going for Mildred next. So swiftly moving on. Mildred, so I know that you're now one of the curators at Cairo Museum, and I know about your husband. But how did you get involved in Sir Wilfrid's expedition?
Oh, well, as I explained previously, my husband, Bernard, had been the curator at the Cairo Museum really for the last 15 years, and had got to know Sir Wilfrid very well, obviously Wilfrid being, in charge of a lot of expeditions and doing a lot of work in Egypt. So my husband and Bernard were very good friends. Unfortunately, as I've been trying to instill the seriousness of this amongst everybody, my husband fell victim to the curse of the Pharaohs after being involved in the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb.
Yes.
Died, and I have taken over, the curatorship of the Cairo Museum. So I've continued that relationship with Sir Wilfrid.
Yes, I hate to tend to indulge in these sort of things, but you seem rather paranoid about the curse of the Pharaohs. I was wondering if you could sort of indulge a little bit more, as you say, about how your husband fell victim to it.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm paranoid. I have experience. I know what this is. This is.
I'm sure it must be a very scary thing. The naughty curses coming everywhere.
What is it? People might laugh at me, Inspector, but I know what I have lived through and what I have seen. And my husband was one of the people who entered Tutankhamun's tomb, and he died. George Carnarvon. It carries on, and I am incredibly worried about the situation. I've been trying to talk to the people at the Cairo Museum because when they excavated the tomb of Tutankhamun, the balance of the gods, it's all gone to pot. It's just they're ready to wreak their revenge. It's just chaos now, and so I'm trying to instill in the museum that we need to deal with this. We need to remove the artifacts from the museum. We need to make it safe And Sir Wilfrid has been kind enough, because the museum won't let me remove the artifacts, to try and help me identify what these treasures are, taking the photographs, sending those out to other experts around the world to try and find out more about what we're dealing with.
Yes, I really do wish you would let me look at the findings and give my own analysis. I know I was at the museum recently and I was looking at some of the artifacts and they do look a bit off, some of them. I really do think you should reconsider and let me take a professional eye.
No, Amelia, I've spoken to you several times about this now, and I've made it very clear that you are not allowed to look at the artifacts. I mean, it's far too dangerous, and you haven't got the experience. You don't understand what you're dealing with, and that's why I was trying to protect you yesterday. Why I was trying to keep you safe when we were entering the tomb. I told everybody we shouldn't be going in there. And the fact that we did, I wanted to make sure that you stayed back, that you had something to cover your face, all of that to try and protect you.
So it was a rather caring thing then. Obviously, you seem to be well trained in the curse. So it was just to make sure they were nice and safe to not allow you to go in. So just to check then, when did you last see Wilfrid alive?
Well, that was the same as what everybody else has said. It was yesterday evening. We had a drink all together to celebrate the discovery. And after we'd had a drink, I made my way home to Cairo.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. As a side note, before we switch over to DI5, I just want to say thank you very much, detectives, to everyone who has donated so far. We very kindly appreciate it. Remember, 20% goes tonight towards the charity Doctors Without Borders. As well, if you haven't got anything to give, we fully understand. But if you can give us a subscribe and a like, it will be very grateful for it. But sorry, shameless plug done. Let's move over to DI5. Any questions for Mildred Berstead?
Yes. So, why specifically are you so worried about Amelia's safety?
Well, I'm worried about everybody's safety. There were several of us there yesterday, and I made sure that at the point when we could enter the tomb, only myself and Sir Wilfrid went in. Sir Wilfrid is incredibly experienced. I believe myself that I must be somehow immune to the curse, because I was, when my husband died, I survived, and I appear to have survived the latest attack of the curse, unlike Sir Wilfrid. So, I was making sure, I was looking after everybody's safety yesterday, but particularly Amelia. She's young, she's naive. She's only just arrived here in Cairo, and I've been trying to look out for her.
Indeed. And you offered to Amelia just a moment ago that you would like the artifacts excavated from this tomb to be examined in the museum, where you have people who know what to do with that? Is that what you said? Yes.
I mean, as I said, I probably have some more, how should we put it? I suppose disposable assistants or associates who have some knowledge, but and hopefully would not succumb to the curse, but they will be able to take the artifacts, take them to the museum and ensure everybody's safety, but also allow them to be studied and looked at to try and find out more about the curse.
And so you would like these artifacts to be studied at the museum, although at the same time you just said that you would like to remove the artifacts that you believe cursed from the museum?
Well, I want to make them safe. I suppose at the start, when I spoke to the museum, I was keen for them to be removed because I was worried about the safety. The museum have said that's not possible. And so now I'm just concerned with trying to make sure that I can make these treasures as safe as possible. Hence, Sir Wilfrid assisting me by taking the photographs, trying to get more information. So I'm at a stage now where I just want to gain more information to try and find out how we can combat this curse in whichever way is possible.
All right. You work at the museum. Have there been any artifact thefts recently? Have any artifacts gone missing?
No, not to my knowledge. And I would be made aware of that, obviously, as the curator.
And Sir William helped you with taking the photos. Did he help with the investigation of the curse in any other ways?
No, I mean, it was very much, he was assisting me with taking photographs, sending them to experts. He obviously had his thoughts about the curse. He's been involved in a lot of expeditions. He was good friends with my husband. He obviously knew George Carnarvon, Howard Carter. So he presumably had his own opinions about the curse, but I don't know if he was doing any other studies himself separately.
Okay.
Do you know if he believed in the curse?
Well, he should have done, because, after what happened yesterday, I mean, it's just obvious, isn't it? He's another victim, and nobody seems to be taking this seriously.
Indeed.
Should we pass it over to the detectives at home, do I think?
Yes.
Lovely. So we'll quickly scan through these as quick as we can. So Jalath Killeen, just wanted to confirm you run the museum's curation department now, don't you, Mildred?
Yes, I do. My husband had been there for 15 years. He passed away about 18 months ago now, after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. And since then, I've been single-handedly, curator of the museum. I took over the head curatorship.
Yes. And to your knowledge, is this the first time anyone's tried to excavate La Takdul's tomb?
Yes, I mean, it was very little known there. Very little seems to be known about him at all. So it was the first time any discovery had been made of this tomb or of this site.
Okay. We'll try just for these. I'll try rattle through as many questions as we can on this one for you, so keep your answers nice and prompt. Colin Smith would like to know where you got the scarf from.
It was mine. I have a selection of them with me normally because you always need them for covering the mouth to enter the tomb, to keep the dust out, and obviously as protection.
There we are. I'm afraid I can't see specifically who asked, but I did see someone ask about why you gave a scarf to Amelia but not to Sir Wilfrid. Did you believe he had his own?
Sir Wilfrid it was highly experienced, as I presumed he would have his own scarf. He's done this sort of thing before, and I said I was looking out for Amelia because she was very new to all of this.
So it's from her inexperience you wanted to protect her.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, someone asked as well have you met Amelia prior to the expedition? Was this the first time you met her on the expedition?
When she came to start work with Sir Wilfrid, that was the first time I met her. Yes.
Okay. Dominic Lelot Harry, what time did Mildred leave? What time did you leave back to Cairo?
Well, I left before. I wasn't there when Lord Lucas and Amelia were taking him back to the tent, Sir Wilfrid. I left slightly before that. I just literally had one drink and then went home.
Okay. Kirsty Deb, what did you drink that night, and were you making drinks for anybody?
No, I wasn't. I had a small whiskey that I had in my own sort of little hip flask that I have with me, and shared that with people. It was just a small sip, really. It was just a very quick celebratory drink of a well done, for what we'd achieved.
Okay. Carol Baskin says, me and Mildred have one thing in common. We both killed our husbands. I'm sure that's relevant in 95 years' time.
I'm sorry, I did not kill my husband. I don't know what.
I don't know.
What
I'm sure
but it was the curse.
Carol Baskin is saying something quite controversial. What you're saying, contradict. There we are. Fancy words. Okay. Ruth Malone was asking the official cause of your husband's death. You still stand by it's the curse of the Pharaohs?
Well, of course. I mean, I don't know why people won't take me seriously about this. It's a proper thing. I mean, George, Howard, my husband, now Sir Wilfrid. This is what's happened here. It's the curse of the Pharaohs.
Howard Carter didn't die of the curse of the Pharaohs. He lived for years. He's still alive.
Well, but he will. He will. They'll all succumb eventually.
Okay, Poppy McGeary. I don't know where you've got this theory from, but Amelia, are you Mildred's daughter?
No.
You're not Lord Haines' daughter, are you?
No.
Really?
Just looking for... DI5, you're not related to anyone, are you?
Not that I know of.
That's right, I'm just checking all the straws that we're clutching out there. Any final ones? Linda Kemp, Mildred, do you still have your hip... Do you have your hip flask? I didn't recall you having a hip flask.
Oh, well, I said just earlier that when we had the celebratory drink, I had some of my own with me. I do, yes, I've still got that. You're very welcome to look at it if you want to. It was my husband's, and I just take it on an expedition with me normally for a bit of refreshment.
There we are. My sincere apologies for the mix-up on that one. And I think again we're sort of asking. We'll take this final one from Martin Dale. Has anyone come across any fake artifacts? Have any of you seen fake artifacts before?
Harrison might have done.
Oh no, everything in my life is extremely genuine.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not what we've heard.
Yes, I like that tan. Okay, so I think we're going to leave it there with Mildred. But as he's piped up, I think it's time. I don't know about you, DI5. Who would you like to question next? You have Harrison Drake or Harrison Drake?
I think I'll go with Harrison Drake.
Here we go.
Excellent choice there, DI5. So let's... I mean, we've kind of left him to last because it sort of fits quite nicely. Harrison... I mean, I've narrowed it down to your 1 and 4, but I don't really understand why you're here. I'm sort of confused why you ended up on the excavation site, considering you were such fierce rivals with Sir Marker.
Well, first of all, welcome to Cairo, Inspector Rutherford.
Yes, thank you.
It was a coincidence, really. I happened to be in Cairo. A man like me has friends all over the world. I was here to visit a few rare sites of my own. Anyway, I heard through a friend that dear old Welford was nearby and was awaiting a large order of sand. I believe it was being sent to the camp that night. Anyway, a long time ago. I used to lead an expedition up the South Americas. I was working for Lord Haines, actually. We used to be old friends. It's no secret me and Wilford had a friendly rivalry in the world of antiquities and beautiful things. I just thought it was worth paying a visit to see how his little expedition was getting on.
Yeah, well, Harrison, to be honest...
Hi.
Yes, you were good friends with Sir Wilfrid, but I mean, after all that he did to you as well, exposing you as a con man all this time ago, that relationship has passed now.
Sorry, what do you mean by con man?
Well, I'm sure everybody's aware of the stories that there were, the rumours about Harrison, and everybody must be aware, surely.
Oh, it's a first for me.
Oh, well, when he was all these expeditions he's been having, that he's been forging the findings, shall we say, by producing artifacts that actually he bought in Syrian markets. So not artifacts at all.
Really?
And Sir Wilfrid, made this public.
It's quite a serious allegation that Harrison made against you.
Mr. Rutherford, again, welcome to Cairo.
Inspector Rutherford.
We should head out one evening. This is all malicious nonsense fabricated by jealous rivals like dear Wilfrid. In any case, my achievements are legendary. Everybody knows this. From the untouched treasures in Peru to striking gold on the search for El Dorado. I've been down more holes than you've had hot dinners, Inspector. Wilfrid and Mildred's husband have been working for me for years, actually, documenting my artifacts and my discoveries. So any suggestion that these beautiful things that I keep around me should be anything less than genuine is just purely malicious.
Yes, well, it may be so that you've been working with them for a long time, but it was actually I who alerted Sir Wilfrid and Lord Haines to your latest artifact being a forgery, the Polynesian headpiece. I mean, you sent it
little liar. That is the utmost... I'm shocked to hear that, Amelia. I'm shocked to hear that with your clear assets and knowledge, I can hand on heart verify the authenticity of the headset myself. In fact, I removed it from the skeleton. Come to think of it, maybe it was something to do with all the chemicals. Something to do with all the chemicals that Sir Wilfrid was using in that photography tent of his. If you think about it, and you need to use your imaginations, a spill of potassium cyanide was, it could easily erode a layer of the aging on the artifacts. Maybe to the untrained eye, it could appear newer than it was. It's perfectly explainable.
Well, quite possibly so. Also, Psyche, when you ask what's up, the year is 1925 and there's a dead man, so we're having a bit of a tricky time. Thank you very much, moderator, for solving that one. Sorry, moving back, 1925, dead man, very serious. Harrison, when did you last see Sir Wilfrid alive?
Inspector, last night, same as everyone else. We watched Sir Wilfrid miraculously get drunk on what appeared to be water. I've heard of lightweights, Inspector, but dear Walter could float away in the Cairo sun. I left around 9:30 before sunset to travel back into town. I had a meeting with a contact to discuss a potential investment. Well, actually funding for a new expedition.
Well, as you're aware, and I think I mentioned earlier, I'm probably looking for a new leader for my expedition. Now we've found our target temple, shall we say, I need someone to take it forward. And as you mentioned yourself, you and I did have a very successful time working together in South America. So now the temple of La Tadgul is waiting to be explored. And perhaps you and I need to discuss the position.
Well, I'm always happy to fill a position, but it seems to me that if I was to get involved, you have to remember, I'm no third-rate rock pusher like Wilford. If I get involved, I'll have to be setting my own terms. I think I could only get involved if any of the team, I think they'd all have to leave. I'll bring in my own people. I attract good talent. I don't want to work with any backstabbers and crackpots. I'm a lover, not a fighter, Inspector. All these guys would have to go. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure Lord Haines could actually back an expedition anymore. From what I hear, his bank balance is emptier than some of Wilfred's tombs.
Right. On that rather arrogant note, I'm going to pass it over to D.I. Feig. There's more statements than questions coming through in the comment section at the moment, but any questions for Harrison, please put them in now. But D.I. Feig, over to you.
Let's talk.
So, first off, Sir Marker what was Sir Marker's opinion of you coming along to the excavation yesterday?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
What did Sir Marker think of you coming along to the excavation yesterday?
Sorry, you're asking what did Wilfred think of me coming to the expedition? Well, I think he was excited to see me again. I mean, he knows I'm legendary. He could learn a thing or two. I think he would be very excited, wouldn't you?
No.
Can't say I would.
When I come into town, everybody knows about it.
It's because you won't shut up. Sorry, D.I. Feig, back to you.
You said that some of the chemicals that the deceased used for his photography could have possibly made the artifacts
Potassium
not appear
cyanide.
Yes. Are these chemicals poisonous?
Well, this is quite hard to explain to a layman, but these are quite complicated matters. But yeah, potassium cyanide is known. It's not something you'd want to have a full cup of, is it?
Of course. Then, did you bring any of your tools with you coming into this excavation?
Well, I came well equipped. What specifically would you like to know?
Well, do you have your own chemicals by any chance?
It was a social visit, so I left the kit at home. But as I say, I did come well equipped.
I see. I think we can pass it to the detectives at home for a bit.
No problem at all.
Lovely.
Let's go over to them. Question from Jenny Wren. Harris, but
Hello, Jenny.
it's not a question relevant to the investigation, but I'm going to read it because
I'd love to hear it.
Harrison, do you find it difficult getting through a doorway with your head being so big?
Well, you see, I'm an adventurer, so if the door isn't big enough, I build a bigger door.
There we are. If needed, his ego will bounce through it. What? That's a question for Lord Haines. There was questions again asked about your knowledge in chemistry. So you said about you don't bring your own kit with you. Do you tend to have chemicals with you in your kit?
I have an entourage of people, Inspector. By the way, you should come out around Cairo one evening. It would be...
Why
we'd
do
have
you
a great
keep
time.
trying to get me to go for a drink with you?
It's a great scene. So I have a whole entourage of people that have all my equipment and the various different chemicals that may or may not be involved in the preservation of great antiquities and beautiful things. But I don't have anything on me right now, if that's what you're asking.
Not really, but yeah, that was sort of asking if you had access to chemicals, but it's good to know you don't have any on you at the moment. So, Alvar Samso, tell us more about this large order than sand. How did you know about it? You said a friend heard.
Yeah, I've got contacts in the market, and someone happened to mention that he'd ordered some sand, which I thought was
when you say contacts,
unusual.
who are these contacts?
You want to know names?
Yes, why not?
Cleopatra.
Cleopatra.
Well, that's what she told me her name was, Inspector.
I think that might be a fake name. It's almost
well,
like
she was a very genuine antiquity.
Yes, it's almost like she made the name up on the spot. Who would do such a thing? So Cleopatra, working in the markets of Cairo, told you that there was sand being delivered. Lord Haines, just a quick yes or a no. Were you aware that this sand order was being delivered?
No.
It was just asking about because you would have been presumably be footing the bill, but it might be that.
I did think it rather seemed to be calls to Newcastle, but.
Treasure hunts in London, an invitation to events, part of the ITM Games Group. Fantastically brief name there. ITM Games Group. We'll go with that. Would Amelia just to check? What is Harrison? What is your professional opinion of Amelia? And Amelia, would you be okay working as Harrison's assistant? I tell you what, actually, because Amelia, just a yes or a no. Would you be okay working for Harrison?
I could offer a good situation.
Family show.
To be honest, I don't think he would ever take me on as his assistant, and I would be uncomfortable working with someone that I know has no clue whether he's touching a forgery or a real artifact.
And Harrison, after that rather damning statement, what's your opinion of Amelia professionally?
Clearly a very talented lady with incredible assets to bring to a chap like me. We will talk. We will talk. I'm a talker. I will talk. Let's talk.
Yes, and he won't stop. Pandemics. Harrison, have you ever purchased or sold anything to or from the Cairo Museum?
That's a very good question.
It's a very easy question.
Yes, I mean, hence my association with Mildred's husband. Yes, absolutely. In my line of work, I find beautiful things. I put them on display, genuine
so
things.
You have traded with the Cairo Museum?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Christian Denning.
Genuine objects.
Does Drake know of any of the other suspects hating each other? These three to the left of you, do you know if they hate each other or no idea?
Sorry, so could you ask me that again, Inspector?
So Amelia, Lord Lucas and Mildred, do you know of them hating each other or no idea?
I think the whole expedition was very lo-fi. As far as I was concerned, I don't mean to denigrate the efforts of all those present, but I think if we were to move things forward, you need a brand new team. Whether these people got on with each other, I really don't know. As I say, I've got a lot of friends around the world. I'm a very busy man.
Okay. Now, I think what would be best to do now is I'm going to open the floor up for 5 minutes for any questions for any suspect for clarification. So, DI Fag, I'm going to give you the first opportunity for a few minutes to ask any suspects any questions. Please, detectives at home, put your questions in now. And suspects, please keep your answers as brief as possible. So, DI Fag, over to you.
Indeed. So, Mildred, when you and Wilfred sent out the photos, did you ever send any artifacts or anything besides the photos out to other experts?
No, that's the reason that Wilfred took the photographs was So we didn't need to send the artifacts out. So it's just the photographs that get sent so that they can be looked at and discussed with the experts.
Right. Okay. And I'm interested in your theory of the curse of the Pharaohs. Is there any evidence to show that the deaths you claim were the curse of the Pharaohs are in any way related to the opening of the tomb, or were the deaths all by different means and not necessarily related?
Well, of course they're related, because they all happened after people had been in a tomb. So first of all, my husband, obviously George Carnarvon, and now we've got Wilfrid, and it's all happened after they've entered a tomb. It's unbalanced the gods. I mean, I know people think I'm foolish, but you'll be laughing on the wrong side of your face soon, because I am right. I know I'm right.
Indeed, but the timing is the only similarity between these deaths?
And the fact that they died after unbalancing the gods. I mean, they've all suffered and died, and it's horrific, and it's to do with the curse.
Indeed. So do any of the suspects have a knowledge of chemicals? We've spoken with Harrison, but any of the others, you have knowledge of chemicals?
I can answer this one. All of us would have a basic knowledge of the chemicals used for testing artifacts' age. So that's a certain amount of chemicals that, of course, you wouldn't want to get on your skin, for instance, and you certainly wouldn't want to ingest. Perhaps Lord Lucas Haines, I'm not sure actually how much knowledge you would have of that, but the rest of us would definitely have access to and knowledge of those chemicals.
I mean, the fortunate thing about being the person who's paying bills is that I don't have to worry about the details, like what chemicals do. I have people to do that for me. So no, I know nothing about chemicals. If I want to know, I would ask one of my experts that I pay for.
All right. Could each of you describe the deceased in, say, 3 words?
And please keep them quick and brief, and then I'm going to make that your last question, DI5, I can pass over to the detectives at home. Mildred seems to have an answer. Other suspects, if you are stuck, I hope you don't mind, DI5, I'm going to make it a little bit easier for them. Rather than 3 words, just a very brief, or 1 sentence. If you can't think of 3 words, just 1 sentence, what you thought of them. But we'll start with Mildred.
Yes, he was very reliable and a good friend to myself and my late husband.
That's about 15 words, but good start. Carry on.
With 1 sentence.
1 sentence, we'll take that. Anyone else got an answer?
I can give you 3 words. Simply not me.
There we are. Amelia or Lord Lucas?
Well, how's about self-obsessed, arrogant, and
let it family show, Lord Lucas.
Team.
There we are. Thank you. I was a little bit worried what the 3rd word might be. And then finally, Amelia.
I would just say he had a reputation far bigger than his skill set.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just do some very quick fire questions from the detectives at home, and then it will be moving on for your conclusions. Alvasamo, Mildred, have you met anyone since your husband died? I think he means romantically, not just anybody in general.
No, my husband only died 18 months ago, and it's been a very difficult time. I've been thrown into my work.
Okay, so we'll take that as a no. Jenny Wren 01, Harrison, do you like badgers?
Sorry?
Do you like badgers?
I'm willing to try anything.
I don't have a response to that, and I really hope that that's not how you intended it. That was a callback joke for anyone who missed last week's episode, Mr. Wobbly's Murder Time Spectacular. If you don't know, watch it back. Then you'll know what the Badger's comment is. Shameless plug. So, Regent Spec, what does potassium cyanide do to artifacts? Harrison, just clarify what you mentioned about the chemicals, and you say it might have damaged the crown that you sent in.
Yes, this is a chemical that's used in photography, but it can erode the surface of certain antiquities, which can, of course, give the impression that the texture has been eroded, and therefore it may be a forgery under a microscope.
Okay. ITM Games Group. Mildred, did you handle the artifacts in the museum yourself, or do you worry about what you're handling may be cursed?
Well, as I explained before, I believe I'm immune to the curse because I haven't had any effects from being near Tutankhamun's tomb or again now from Latak Duel. So I do handle the artifacts, yes, but I appear to be immune.
Okay. Christian Denning. Mildred, do you like Amelia?
I think she's very, very clever young lady. I think
Clever.
she'll go far.
There we are. Clever Christian, but inexperienced, as previously commented. Question from Mark Randall. Amelia, did you like working for Sir Wilfrid? Yes or no? I'll only take a yes or no.
There is no yes or no answer to that.
Is it tolerated then?
Tolerated.
Tolerated. There we are. I apologise, Amelia. I made that rather difficult for you there, but I just wanted to your expressions sort of answer the question for us there. So questions that aren't repeat. Apologies. There's a few questions that sort of repeating themselves. A question again. Someone was asking about Harrison and Amelia being in a relationship. The answer is no. None of our suspects are in a relationship with each other, myself or D.I. Feig or the deceased. Jarlath Killeen. Does Amelia like Mildred?
Yes, and I have a great respect for her and her work, of course.
Okay. Squib Vicious. Harrison, just to clarify, where were you at 7 p.m.? Were you in the tomb or elsewhere?
Well, I was with everybody else.
There we are. A quick question, actually. A few people asked this. Sorry, it got lost in the comment section briefly. Just a show of hands. Did anyone go... confession time, really. Did anyone go into the photography tent yesterday, or has no one been in?
I would have been in there yesterday.
There we are. You were in there...
I would have gone in the morning, of course, before excavation began.
Ah, so you went in the morning just to sort a few things out. Lovely. I think that is all I'm going to take. Apart from David Mears, could this simply be the curse of Shaka Khan? The answer is no. I think we're going to leave it there because questions again are sort of falling on a repeater stage. Apologies for anyone's question who wasn't read out. But D.I. Feig, I'm going to give you one last question if you've got one.
I think I am okay.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to leave it there, I think, detectives at home, because the time has come for your conclusions. For anyone who hasn't joined us on the case before, the way this works is I'm going to give you 2 minutes to type in your conclusions for who you believe killed Sir Wilfrid Marker and why. So remember, who killed Sir Wilfrid Marker and why. You've got 2 minutes. Start typing it into your comment section now. I'm going to save you a little bit of time. It wasn't me and it wasn't suicide. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Thank you very much, detectives. Okay, detectives. Thank you very much for your conclusions. Quite a few of you have typed it in this evening, which we're always very grateful for. Before we do take your conclusions at home, however, I'm going to go to our guest detective from over the pond first. DI5, do you have a conclusion?
I do.
Okay, lovely. So, who killed Sir Wilfrid Marker?
I do believe it was Mildred.
Why
You see-
Mildred?
Yes, I think that she did not intend to kill Wilfrid. She intended to kill Amelia. She put the poison on the scarf before giving it to Amelia. However, that was foiled when Wilfrid took the scarf from her. I think that she and Wilfrid were perhaps doing some sort of side business, or perhaps faking the excavation site. I do also think that she was trying to convince people of the reality of the curse. I don't think that she actually believes in it. I think it is simply a good cover for the side business that she is running.
Very interesting theory there indeed. So it was an indirect murder by mistake, almost, you're claiming.
Yes.
Let's see if the detectives at home agree. Well, it seems a few of them are in consensus with you. The first ones that came in, Lowry Dennis, Mildred meant to kill Amelia as she's a threat to reveal the fake artifacts. And then Jarlath Keeleen, Mildred killed him by accident with the scarf. Sarah Horton, Mildred did it with the scarf. Crillian, Mildred did it. Again, Kitty Holmes. A few different ones. Julia Handley, Lord Haines, as he found out Wilfrid was a fake and bleeding him dry. A couple more from Amelia. A couple more from Mildred. Jane Young, Amelia, she wants his job. Frostbite, Badgers killed him. Plot twist. I never mentioned Badgers didn't do it, did I? That would be a rather anticlimax at the end, wouldn't it? So again, a few people, Mildred with the scarf, a lot of it, Mildred with the scarf. Jarlath Keeleen again, hedging a bet. Harrison, just double checking a lot for the Kevin Dickinson, Lord Lucas Haines did it. He showed the flask. He wanted to get the money from the artifacts, but they were fake, taken into the tomb via the other entrance. I create craft. Amelia, she wanted to do his job and had access to the chemicals and knew about his fakery. Mildred, more Mildred. I'll just quickly do a few more, just for variety. Divya Sukmar Harrison is looking to take over the expedition with his own investor once he's gotten rid of Wilfrid, and broke person family show Lord Haines out of the way. Him and Mildred wanted to sell artifacts with a hip flask scarf dead. So thank you very much for your conclusions there, detectives and DI Fag. So, let's move on by reviewing the facts of the case again. I'll try to go through this nice and quickly for you. So, Sir Wilfrid Marker was discovered dead this morning in his private tent. We believe he was poisoned with a faint smell of bitter almonds on his clothing. There was also, from close inspection, there was ulceration and tissue damage around his chin, mouth and neck. He went to the tomb at 7 p.m. alongside all of our suspects. So let's go through the suspects in tow. Let's go to the man who loves himself too much, Harrison Drake, an old rival to Sir Wilfrid. It seemed Wilfrid was slandered the authenticity of his work. Maybe it was an act of revenge, or perhaps Lord Haines had mentioned he needs a new head explorer, so maybe he was ensured that he could take all of the glory for himself after the latest discovery. As well, when it came to fame and glory, the same thing could be said for his assistant Amelia. Now, Sir Wilfrid constantly belittled her along the way, and her skill set far outweighed the position she was in. Perhaps she'd had enough of being undervalued. With finding a discovery of this size, she would have the adulation and would no longer have to publish her work under a pseudonym. She could potentially lead the expedition herself. And when it comes to expeditions, obviously we have Lord Haines. Now, Sir Wilfrid had clearly bankrupted him with the expedition, so maybe he followed through with that death threat he made in the argument from a few days back. Regardless of the discovery, these artifacts would be worth a pretty penny, so you could recuperate your loss and potentially make a profit on top. It would have been easy enough to pour some poison into that whiskey flask when they were celebrating last night. I mean, as for Mildred, I'm a little bit unsure why you would want to kill Sir Wilfrid. There's something clearly dodgy going on with that photography tent. My guess is you and Wilfrid were most likely shipping artifacts that you'd smuggled out of the Cairo Museum together. Unusually large crates, and swapping them out for the fakes. Photography doesn't need that much space to avoid rubbing together. Perhaps that arrangement had gone south along the way with that new discovery. but I don't know, it doesn't quite fit still. That's what's annoying me, detectives.
Inspector Rutherford, I just think you're forgetting the very, very real possibility that actually it was the curse of the Pharaohs that killed Sir Wilfrid.
Well, it's a possibility. I mean, it's a very unlikely one, though. Do you know what? I think I've been looking at this the wrong way. I think almost I need to look the way that DI5 has, because maybe someone didn't intentionally kill Sir Wilfrid. Maybe there was another intended target. Let's piece it all together. I mean, Lord Haines funds an expedition, which is clearly just a front for smuggling artifacts out of the Cairo Museum through that photography tent. And then the day after Lord Haines threatens Sir Wilfrid, a tomb magically appears of a lost pharaoh. Harrison heard rumours in the market about how Sir Wilfrid ordered a large amount of sand. It's a very strange order when you're in the middle of the desert somewhere. You also mentioned how they'd accidentally dug into a secret tunnel of the Cairo Museum along the way. Maybe that tomb was actually an entrance to one of the secret passages to the museum that had just been repurposed for this ruse, considering it's very bizarre. Lord Haines said they'd never seen a tomb before with metal shelving on it, and La Takdul, as pointed out by Amelia, is Arabic for no entry. But it's a rather clever ruse for the untrained eye. Except there was someone in the camp who would have spotted all of this if they got a proper look. Amelia. She highlighted earlier how the tomb would have been rather odd, and how she wasn't allowed to properly inspect it. And Sir Wilfrid knew that. You weren't allowed in the tomb, and Mildred knew that too. Which is why, if she realised that, she would have maybe tried to whack her out of the way, maybe by giving her a scarf that would keep her safe. But in fact was doused with the liquids stolen from the chemicals within the photography tent. One chemical used in processing photographs in the time of 1935 is potassium cyanide, which leaves a rather unusual smell of bitter almonds. You were at a high risk of being caught, so you thought it was easier to take Amelia out of the equation and keep all of the glory for yourself without being exposed. The only thing you hadn't accounted for was the arrogance of your business partner, Sir Wilfrid. You claim you may believe the curse of the two pharaohs is real. Maybe you didn't even realise the mistake you made until this evening. However, when you planned to kill Amelia, you indirectly killed off your business partner. I'm afraid, is DI5 correct, Miss Berstead?
Yes, all right. Yes, I admit it. I tried to kill Amelia, but the curse is true. I sincerely believe that, and it did kill my husband. When the museum was ignoring me, when I was trying to get them to get rid of the artifacts, to remove them from the museum, and they wouldn't listen to me, I heard that Sir Wilfrid was going to be running a new expedition here, and I remembered that he and my husband had smuggled artifacts before on the black market, and I thought maybe Sir Wilfrid could help me again to remove the artifacts from the museum and try and remove the curse. But then, of course, Amelia turned up, and the moment I met her, I knew she would see right through everything. And then when Sir Wilfrid came to me and said he had this idea about opening up La Takdul, I just knew she would see right through it. So I was left with no alternative but to try and stop her, because Sir Wilfrid just wouldn't see past his ego. He wouldn't understand what could happen, the potential that we were going to be found out. So I had no choice. I had to do what I did to try and protect me and Sir Wilfrid, and it all just went horribly wrong.
Well, that does leave me with one rather important thing to say. DI5, congratulations, you have very successfully caught the killer. Suspects, please give him a modest round of applause. Well done. And well done to all of the detectives at home that got it. DI5, have you enjoyed yourselves this evening? Well, this afternoon, where you are.
Yes, I have.
I'm delighted to hear that. And everyone at home, I do hope you have enjoyed yourselves this evening. Remember, any donations are kindly accepted, with 20% going towards this week's charity, Doctors Without Borders. we understand with the current climate, 95 years in the future of 1925, that obviously times are tough for some people at the moment. So we understand if you can't donate, but if you haven't already, if you can give us a like and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. But above all, we would love you to come back and join us next week, same time, Thursday at 8:15 p.m. British summertime, where we will be going for the most unorthodox of tastes. We'll be travelling back into the future, where the tables seem to have turned, where Sherman Bones is attempting to solve the case of the missing crown jewels, but it seems the murder mystery owner herself has met the demise. For now, stay safe, stay at home, remember, like and subscribe, and we will see you back on the case next week. Take care, detectives. Good night.